Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to have a function that when we click on this button, it will do what we want it to do. Okay, so in buttons.js, because it's to do with the button, I've added some code to start with on click of button check. So if we want to do this, what we say $button check. So that's our selector. So that picks that button. And then on click, okay, on click is the event. So in other words, when we click on this button, then it's going to run this function. So the function is inside these curly brackets here. So whatever we tell it to do, it will do it when we click the button. Okay, so what we want it to do is what we've designed for it to do. Okay, so here's the design steps. Okay, and this is what we need to understand. So we need to when we click it, we need to grab the text from the text box. So we need to get this text from the text box. We need to get the score from the button. So we've got the score available in our program. We need to get the term from the button as well. Okay, remember we put those things on the button. And then we need to loop through the definitions of the term, the alternative definition, and then check to see if it matches the user's text. Okay, so that's what we need to do. Okay, and then if it matches, then we've got a success message. If it's the same, then these are some things we've got to do. Okay, so here's the pseudocode for that. So this first one, current item, we're going to call it current item. We're going to get the data from the data property. So we've just got this in different order. So that's from getting the current term. So that's this one, number 3 here. That's that one. The user input one is this one. Okay, so that's there. So let me just edit that so it's the same as the pseudocode. So let's change that. It's easy to change this. Input here. Okay, so here we've got it. So user input, I'll change that again. So let's put that there. Okay, so we've got user input, we've got the score, we're getting the score there. So 1, 2, and 3, just like different order. So we get all the data. We then set up a test. So we set match to be false, and then we go to every definition and we ask if it matches the user input. If it matches, then it's true. So we'll just loop through. Don't worry about it's a for loop because there aren't many definitions. So the alternative definitions at max is going to be 3. Okay, so that's not a very significant loop. So we can just go through each one. So we set the switch off. Okay, and if it matches, then the switch will be set to true. So nothing in here turns it off again. Okay, so it can only be set to true inside this loop. Okay, so if we finish the loop and we've got a match, then these are the things we wanted to do. We wanted to show a message on the page. So we wanted to show a success message. Okay, we wanted to add the score. Okay, the score from that item into the score. We wanted to then store the score back to the button. We want to update the paragraph to say it's successful, and we update the score with the new score, and we just make sure we show the term. They've got it right, so we're going to show it. Okay, so we don't need to let them do that. So we can trigger an event. We can make it do this click, so it shows the definition, and we can make it do that automatically. Okay, so that's our pseudocode. So let's just do those bits of pseudocode. So if I put this next, oops, not over there, I want to put it here. put my windows together. I've got several windows open, so put that on top. Will it stay on top? Maybe not. Okay, so my pseudocode says current term equals get data from the current term's data property. So what I'm going to say, let current term, okay, and we're going to say that equals, now we've got to get it from this buttons, okay, so we say this, so that's referring to this button, btn check dot data, okay, and we call that data current term. Okay, so in flashcards.js, it wasn't flashcards.js, it was on btn next, somewhere down here. There we go. We called it here current term. We set the data to the current term, and that will change each time we click on next, btn next. So that will get its data. So that picks out the data. So let's put a comment on there here. Get the term data from the buttons data item. Okay, it's got more than one data item. Right, so the next bit of pseudocode, next bit of pseudocode is here. So we want to get the user's input from there. Okay, so let's get the user input. So we're going to call that. User input, and we're going to get that. Say let user input equals $. So we need to know what the user's input is. So we click on flashcards and we check it. So the input box is here and it's called user input. That's a text area. That's called user input. So I'm going to grab that and we put in there and we've got hashing. So hash user input. It's a form control, so we get its value. Okay, so we get the user's value there, and then we get the score. Not the score, the score from the buttons data item. Okay, so it's going to be this, very similar. So I'm just going to copy that, and we're going to call it. What did we say we would call it? So we're going to just call it score. So we're going to say score, and this was just score as well. Okay, so we set that up in flashcards.js. There it is, btn score. So it should be 0 to start with. So on the very first time, it should be 0. Okay, so that's that pseudocode so far. So 1, 2, 3. So we've got those. Get, and then we're going to test the entry. Okay, so we're going to do a for loop here. So we're going to say let match equal false. Okay, so that should set the match to false, and then we're going to do a for loop. So let's put that in there. Loop through the definitions and test the term. Test the user's input. Okay, so we're going to say for, pseudocode, isn't it? So for, now notice what I'm doing, I'm building my for loop, so my condition has got to go in here. So I'm going to say for definition, spell it right, and we're going to loop through of the current term, but we want to loop through its old definitions. In other words, that's a list. So we're going to loop through the list. Okay, so remember in data, oh, I've got it open already. Data.js, all definitions are a list, square brackets, and you might have more than one definition in it. Okay, so this one's got more than one definition, and you can see that there. So it's got to check the first definition, and then it's got to check the next definition. So that's what we're doing. So we've got the definition from called alt definitions. Just make sure it's called alt definitions there. That's its name. That's the key. Okay, so we're going to loop through all of those and we're going to check. So for each definition in current term.alt definitions, that's what we're doing here. If the definition matches the user input, so that's just an if statement. If, okay, so if definition equals the what we're going to say, the user input. Okay, now I'm going to put this to lowercase. Okay, so that they are, is checking to lowercase. Okay, so they're both, whatever we put in there, they're checking just lowercase characters. It gets too difficult otherwise. So if that's true, then we're going to say match equals true. Okay, so that should switch the switch. Okay, so that's the test. I don't think we need to put comments on. So test the definition. Okay, and then here we can just put in there record the match. Okay, so if they're the same, then that's fine. Okay, so we can get this through this in time. We've got 3 minutes. So then we're going to do this bit here. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to start a new video and carry on. So this will do that. Now we've got another section coming where we're going to say if there's a match, then we're going to do all of these things. Okay, so my video is going to run out in a minute. So I'm going to stop this and then start a new one.